Okay, so let's create some clumps of fur. Clumps of fur are really, really useful when it comes to doing curly fur in particular, and realising how we can shape the ends of tendrils, or potentially for some animals the fur is actually just clumped together. So for example, I drew some red pandas earlier on in the year, and in that tutorial we are creating a lot of clumps in the fur instead of fur that all runs in a specific direction. So clumps can look like all sorts of different shapes and patterns, and you can, again, much like with the curly fur, effectively start to make it up. But let's begin with some simple shapes, and this can just allow you to understand how you might design clumps in an actual drawing. So if we start off, we're going to think about the shape of a clump, for example. So it's kind of like a triangular shape. It's going to be thicker at the start and then taper down. So we'd basically want some fur markings that originate from along a similar level and then taper to a point, a bit like a fan shape. So in your workbook, I have tasked you with making some of these shapes, and depending on how dexterous you're feeling with your pencil, you may or may not want to do this. But what you can see here is, instead of just creating straight marks that are coming down towards the centre, I've started to create curving marks. And that's really the key for this, is moving the marks to curve from one direction to another so that we can create a nice full sensation. So to get there, we've got one big curve to start with, it says in the workbook, and that is a broad shape like this for you to fill in. And if you want to think about it, maybe for the first instance, you've got a centre mark here where the fur marking is going to be basically straight down. What we need to do is just very gently have some curving fur marks that, as they reach towards the centre, they're becoming much more vertical, and then they swap and they start to curve the other direction. Okay, so we're alluding to this fullness of shape there. Instead of just having all of the fur markings curving in one direction, which would just be one long straight line that continues, we've got them curving one way and then another way, a little bit like brackets really. So that's the first concept. And once we've done that, we can start to shrink the shape down into something a little bit more like this. And there are exercises on the worksheet to help you. If you haven't found the worksheet, do look at the link below. They are free to download. So then when we've got shapes a little bit more like this, we need to return to some aspects that we looked at in the straight fur part 2. So if you haven't done that video, I really do recommend doing it, where we think about the random alignment of the shape. So up here, you can see that all of these markings pretty much start from one level and pretty much finish at one level as well. But instead, we want to randomize this. So we'd want fur that is originating a little bit higher up in some instances, and then some of it's coming halfway down the clump, just so that you can see here straight away we have something that is quite random starting to appear. What I'm thinking about as I do this is getting towards my centre point and then changing the direction of the fur markings. So they're starting to very carefully and gently curve the other way. But they look very different to these shapes up here, and instead this looks like a slightly more realistic arrangement of hairs. So obviously the actual shape of the clump could be quite different to this. It might be shorter, squatter, it might even be less tapered as well. It will vary depending on what you're drawing. Maybe you're drawing a golden retriever with wet fur, in which case the fur might not be particularly long in places towards the top of the head, but you might have kind of thick clumps. So it's clumping if it's got wet. But it's thinking about not starting all of the fur markings from the same level and just having a nice little bit of random variation in there. Now, one of my favourite things to do, and what you will probably need to do if you're doing clumps of fur, is to start to twist the pencil a little bit to get some natural kinks. And this can be quite good fun. So if we're working on a larger scale in particular, then you might want to change your pencil grip. You can see here that I've gripped it over the top. Yeah, I would normally be holding it like this, and instead I'm holding it like this, as though I've just picked it up off the desk. And again, it's a low angle The pencil is at a low angle to the page. This really is important for doing fur. And as I pull a mark down, I'm going to twist the pencil between my fingers. So this is actually really quite a lovely thing to do. I do it in many different portraits for lots of different reasons, but it gives me these really uncontrollable and very natural looking wiggles on the page that often communicate quite coarse fur when it's done with pastel pencils. So you can see I've made quite long markings there, but you could make shorter markings if you want to. You're just going to have to twist the pencil a little bit faster. Again, this is all going to feel very different with a pastel pencil in terms of I'm being very, very light with my graphite pencil here because it puts a marking down so easily. But with a pastel pencil, I'd probably need to press a little bit harder. I'm still sweeping my pencil on and off the page, so it's moving before it hits the page and it's still moving as it hits the page. And despite the fact that I'm twisting my pencil, you can see I'm also just drawing these markings in the same direction. My pencil is just going straight. Well, it's actually not going straight, it's going at a diagonal, but the point is I'm not doing this. I'm not cross-hatching. So in some situations you might need to do that, but in general there'll be curly fur or coarse and kinky fur that it's going in the same direction, but the actual fur marking itself is a little bit random. So we still have a nice flow, it's going down, it's not going cross-hatchy and all over the place like that, but the actual marking is somewhat uncontrolled versus being quite smooth as it was with the straight fur. So you can then take this and incorporate it into clumps of fur. And this is the final step on this workbook, is starting to think again about these bracket-like curves. Need to randomize where these marks are starting and finishing, but you can see, sorry, not finishing, where they're starting from. You can see they're all finishing in roughly the same place to start to create the idea of a clump. And I'm just allowing my pencil to twist in my fingers. So each mark comes out a little bit uncontrolled and different to the last. Just like we did on the straight fur, you want to think about your edges and the finishes. So maybe you want a couple of longer bits. Maybe you want a couple of markings that stand out a little bit more and press a little bit harder. And you will start to build up an effect that feels naturally random. So if you have a look at the photo on screen for you, you can see how clumps of fur can be used to describe curly fur in some instances. And I'm thinking about creating a collection of markings that start from quite a wide base but end up at the same point, or roughly the same point. So this can be applied to the curly fur. You could argue curly fur is clumps of fur, but it might also need to be applied in situations where, as I said, you've got a pet portrait and the dog's fur is wet. So even if it's not curly, because it's a Labrador or something, you can still end up with clumps, and you need to be able to make shapes like this and consistent collections of them. So when it comes to drawing clumps of fur with your pastel pencils, something that you will need to consider, as you can see in the portrait, is allowing depth and allowing space between the curls and the clumps. So if we don't allow space between these clumps, they'll all merge together and we will lose the definition. So we do want definition between them. If we don't have that, then you will lose the structure of the animal that you're drawing. So we won't get the correct facial structure, and you will also, as I say, lose the sense of depth, because the idea is that these are quite thick bits of fur, but they would disappear backwards into a nice deep shadow. So you need to allow the underpainting to show through just enough to give us that depth and correct texture. So this is a really good fun thing to do with pastel pencils, definitely more of an advanced technique. I go into it in great detail in the Cub and Fox tutorial. I actually have a half-hour masterclass on fur for that tutorial as well in the membership, and you can learn a lot about how to construct this type of pattern effectively and the different ways that you can use this effect, especially for finishing edges and making the fur feel light but also coarse at the same time. I really hope you have enjoyed these lessons on creating fur to take you from total beginner to somebody who hopefully has a lot more dexterity now with that pencil and understanding of how to create different marks and then how to arrange them and use them to best effect. Don't forget to download all the worksheets that go with these classes. They are available in the links below. And if you want to find out more, I do of course have many full-length online workshops available to start watching immediately.